DeWanna Bonner continues to take shots at the Indiana Fever and the Fever fans. I think it's absolutely disgusting.
DeWanna Bonner in the hot seat after saying what she stated last night in her press conference, man. I can't lie, it does look like some hypocrisy going on.
I wouldn't do anything differently. I think my journey is my journey, and I'm going to accept that. It carried me to where I am in Phoenix, and it happened that way for a reason. I mean, really, that is a wild statement.
You stole that money from Indiana. You signed up for that bread and didn't deliver. You didn't show up for work. You made up bullcrap excuses to not be at work.
The absolute audacity of some people never ceases to amaze me. But Dana Bonner just took things to a whole new level of shamelessness with a recent ESPN interview, where she had the nerve to say, "I wouldn't do anything differently." After essentially stealing $200,000 from the Indiana Fever organization and their loyal fans, this woman signed a contract, collected paychecks for months, then disappeared for 5 straight games, citing mysterious personal reasons before forcing her way out. And now she's sitting in Phoenix, acting like she's some kind of victim who was wronged by the situation.
She came over here, she signed a max contract, she knew Phoenix didn't have the bread, she got 80 here and went and got the rest over there. I think it's trash.
I wouldn't do anything differently. You took 80 grand from the Indiana Fever. You could have just signed. Like, that's one of the things, like, I don't understand why you take these interviews. I don't understand why someone would take an interview and say that, when the reality is that all you did was took a whole bunch of money from a team to not show up.
You refuse to show up to work while receiving money, while taking payment. You refuse to show up and do the job. And let's be clear, you wasn't even good while you was here. You was shooting threes hitting the side of the backboard.
But this is definitely going to be a part of her history, man. Because the new wave is taking over. These new fans are watching. So at the end of the day, yeah, it's going to be a part of her history, unfortunately, man.
The level of disrespect and entitlement in that statement is honestly breathtaking, especially when you consider that Fever fans welcomed her with open arms and treated her like royalty while she was busy planning her exit strategy behind closed doors. If you're as disgusted by this professional misconduct as we are, smash that like button and comment "money grab," because what we're about to expose will show you exactly how this whole scheme played out from beginning to end. Bonner's comments aren't just tone deaf. They're a direct slap in the face to every single person who invested their time, money, and emotional energy into supporting her during her brief and unproductive stint in Indianapolis. The fact that she can sit there with a straight face and claim she has no regrets about taking money under false pretenses while refusing to fulfill her contractual obligations shows exactly what kind of character we're dealing with.
And it happened that way for a reason. It didn't happen that way for a reason. You forced yourself out of Indiana, DeWanna.
I just don't understand this. I don't understand why DeWanna Bonner is taking these interviews at this point in time. Because I'm like, look, you're in Phoenix. You've got what you wanted. You've got what everyone expected you wanted all along. Everything's gone your way. Indiana haters are going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. They're going to love you because you screwed over the Fever. Phoenix Mercury fans are going to love you. Rival fans are going to love you because you basically screwed over the Fever. Fever fans are going to hate you because you screwed over the Fever.
First of all, the fans are the victim. The organization was the victim here. Like, why are we sitting here, she up in these articles like she was a victim, like she did, like something was done wrong? No, the fans are a victim. They welcome you with open arms. They embraced you, and you turned your back and you quit. It's that simple. You quit. You refused to show up to work. You wasn't hurt. You wasn't sick. It wasn't a personal fit. No, you just didn't want to be on the team no more.
This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about basic professional ethics and respect for the people who pay your salary through ticket sales and merchandise purchases. Bonner's journey wasn't some noble path of self-discovery. It was a calculated money grab that left an organization and fan base feeling betrayed and taken advantage of by someone they trusted to help build something special. But the story gets even worse when you dig into the details of exactly how this whole situation unfolded and what it reveals about the current state of professional sports contracts and player accountability. Let's start with the most damning evidence of all, which is the stark contrast between what Dana Bonner delivered during her time in Indiana versus what she signed up to provide when she agreed to that lucrative contract.
You came here, you stunk it up, and then you got benched. Just because you was okay with coming off the bench in another situation don't mean you was okay with coming off the bench in this situation. So I want to know what's the real? What's the real? Because you can't say, while you was here, you said, oh, I've never played in front of this many fans. You were embraced by the fans. You spoke highly of the fans while you were here. You were a starter, but you wasn't playing well. And that was nobody else's fault that you was shooting threes, hitting the side of the backboard, and you was smoking layups. And then your starting spot got took, and then all of a sudden you refused to show up to work.
The way that CaitlinClark wants to play, which of course is the way that the Fever plays, that she is their nucleus, they want to push the ball down the court. They want to be quick. They want to be fast moving. At 37 years old, that style of play might not fit DeWanna Bonner very well. Like, that just doesn't highlight her strength. So I think it's probably a combination of style of play reasons, personal reasons. And yeah, like you said, at this point, she probably wants to win basketball games, make a little bit of money in the process.
And if we gonna keep it real, Chloe Bibby, the new 7-day signee, has fit in and played better than DeWanna Bonner did anyway. Let's be clear here. Chloe Bibby came in first game, knocked down 2 threes. DeWanna Bonner first game versus the gum on the bottom of the shoe, Chicago Sky. We had to jump through hoops of fire and do all types of abracadabra magic tricks to get her to finally score to break that record.
We're talking about a player who averaged a pathetic 7.1 points per game while shooting terribly from the field and looking completely disinterested in helping her team succeed on any meaningful level. This wasn't a case of someone trying their best and things just not working out. This was a veteran player going through the motions while collecting paychecks and waiting for the right moment to force her way out of the situation. Bonner started just 3 of the 9 games she actually bothered to show up for, which tells you everything about how little impact she was making when she was supposedly giving her full effort to the team that was paying her handsomely. The numbers don't lie when it comes to her complete lack of production and engagement during what should have been the honeymoon period of a new contract with a franchise that desperately needed veteran leadership. Her 3.8 rebounds per game and 1.6 assists per game represent the kind of statistical output you'd expect from a bench player getting garbage time minutes, not someone who was brought in as a cornerstone free agent acquisition.
Here's a quote from DeWanna Bonner. I have no problem coming off the bench. I have never been that player. I don't feel like I have that reputation. Now, fair enough. You have won 6th Woman of the Year, respectfully. But that don't mean that's what you thought you were walking into. I believe you thought you was coming here to be a veteran leader, an OG, and a starter. She came here as a starter, was stinking it up, got injured, and Lexi Hall stepped in, and Lexi Hall should have been the starter from day one. DeWanna Bonner should have never been a starter in an Indiana Fever uniform. That's a fact.
Well, Lexi Hall's success and continued success in the system with Caitlin from last year, I think, was the big reason that DeWanna Bonner was moved to the bench at all and kind of trying to figure that out. When I went back through last week, just kind of like pouring over all of these press conferences and like public comments and like my interviews that I had done in Indiana, the thing that stuck out to me was the first day, I think, of training camp, DeWanna Bonner had mentioned like she had to catch her breath because these guys are fast.
Yeah.
It looked like you was mad that Lexi Hall took the starting job back.
The most insulting part is that Indiana fans were patient and supportive, even when her performance was clearly below professional standards, hoping that she would eventually find her rhythm and start contributing at the level everyone expected. Instead of showing gratitude for that patience and working harder to justify their faith in her abilities, Bonner apparently decided that the situation wasn't worth her continued effort and began planning her exit strategy. The organization invested significant salary cap space in roster construction around the assumption that she would be a reliable contributor, only to watch her check out mentally and physically when things didn't immediately go according to her personal preferences. This kind of unprofessional behavior sets a dangerous precedent for how veterans can manipulate situations to get what they want while leaving organizations and fans holding the bag for their selfish decisions. But here's where the story becomes even more infuriating for anyone who cares about fairness and professional integrity in sports. The moment Dana Bonner put on a Phoenix Mercury uniform after forcing her way out of Indiana, she immediately transformed into the player that Fever fans thought they were getting when she signed that contract. We're talking about a woman who couldn't buy a bucket in Indianapolis, suddenly dropping 22 points and 11 rebounds in just her second game back with Phoenix, showing exactly the kind of effort and engagement that was mysteriously absent during her time in Indiana.
Trying to figure out, everything's changed. We add pieces, and pieces come back where you get shots. Normally, the game before, you probably won't get that same shot. And just trying to figure out where you fit on this team, and it's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. So just be patient with us. We're going to be okay.
It's going to take us a little bit of time to gel. Just be patient. Oh, man. Bonner. But, man, it is crazy to hear her say that. It is crazy, y'all. I can't hold you. The fact that now she's more so of understanding it's going to take some time to find your footing. It's, you have to be patient. Man, that's tough, Bonner. That's tough. Coming from somebody that literally gave up. You gave up on Indiana Fever, man. You should have gave it some time, Bonner.
This dramatic turnaround isn't coincidence or better team chemistry. It's clear evidence that she was deliberately underperforming in Indianapolis while waiting for the opportunity to get back to her preferred destination, where her fiancé was already playing. The timing and magnitude of this improvement is so obvious that even casual observers can see what really happened during her brief stint with the Fever. Bonner's Phoenix debut performance exposed the whole charade, proving that she had the ability to contribute at a high level all along, but chose not to do so when it would have actually helped the team that was paying her salary. The statistical difference between her Indiana and Phoenix performances reads like a completely different player, which is exactly what happens when someone goes from deliberately tanking their effort to actually trying to succeed. This kind of calculated manipulation of performance based on personal preferences rather than professional obligations represents everything wrong with modern athlete entitlements and lack of accountability. Fans invest emotionally and financially in these players with the expectation that they'll give their best effort regardless of personal circumstances. And Bonner's behavior completely violates that basic social contract between athletes and supporters. The fact that she can immediately excel elsewhere while claiming she gave her best effort in Indiana is perhaps the most insulting aspect of this entire situation. Phoenix Mercury supporters are celebrating her early success without acknowledging that they're benefiting from someone else's professional misconduct and breach of contract. The ripple effects of this kind of behavior extend far beyond just one disappointing stint, creating precedents that could encourage other players to manipulate situations when they don't immediately get what they want. What makes this situation even more personally offensive to Indiana Fever fans is remembering how DeWanna Bonner initially presented herself when she first arrived in Indianapolis and began interacting with the community. This wasn't someone who immediately expressed dissatisfaction or concerns about the organization. This was a player who publicly praised a passionate fan base and seemed genuinely excited about the opportunity to help build something special with a young and talented roster. Bonner specifically commented about never playing in front of crowds like the ones in Indianapolis, expressing appreciation for the energy and support that Fever fans brought to every single game. She talked about being motivated by the championship aspirations and the chance to provide veteran leadership for players like CaitlinClark and Aaliyah Boston, who are still learning how to navigate professional basketball. These weren't throwaway comments made during standard media obligations. These were seemingly heartfelt statements about feeling welcomed and valued by an organization and community that desperately wanted her to succeed. The betrayal hits differently when you remember that fans bought her merchandise, learned her backstory, and invested emotional energy into supporting someone who was apparently planning her exit strategy from day one. Fever supporters defended her when her early performance was inconsistent, arguing that she needed time to adjust to new teammates and systems while expressing confidence that she would eventually find her groove. They created highlight videos of her few successful moments, celebrated her veteran presence in the locker room, and generally tried to be patient with someone they viewed as a crucial piece of their championship puzzle. The fact that she was simultaneously collecting paychecks while making plans to leave makes all of that genuine support feel foolish and manipulated in retrospect. This wasn't a mutual parting of ways due to basketball fit. This was someone taking advantage of good faith support while having no intention of honoring their commitments to the people who were investing in her success. The personal nature of this betrayal explains why Fever fans remain so angry about the situation even after she's moved on to Phoenix. When someone violates your trust while taking your money, forgiveness doesn't come easily, regardless of what sport we're talking about. The lingering questions about what role Stephanie White played in this entire debacle continue to cast shadows over the Indiana Fever organization and raise concerns about how free agent recruitment and management is being handled behind the scenes. We still don't know what specific promises or assurances were made to Bonner during the recruitment process that might have created unrealistic expectations about her role or playing time with the team. Did White promise her a starting position regardless of performance? Was there some understanding about offensive responsibility or shot attempts that wasn't being honored once the season began? The fact that the organization has remained largely silent about the specifics of what went wrong suggests there might be some uncomfortable truths about how this situation was mismanaged from the beginning. White's coaching decisions regarding Bonner's role and playing time could have contributed to whatever dissatisfaction led to her eventual departure. But without transparency from either party, fans are left to speculate about what really happened. The timing of when Bonner began expressing unhappiness coincides with Lexi Hull stepping up and earning more playing time, which suggests that competition for minutes might have been a factor in her decision to force her way out. If White made promises about guaranteed roles or playing time that couldn't be honored once the season started and other players proved more effective, that represents a serious failure of communication and expectation management. The organization's unwillingness to provide details about what went wrong makes them look either incompetent or dishonest, neither of which inspires confidence in their ability to handle future free agent situations professionally. White's reputation for player development and veteran management is now permanently linked to this fiasco, regardless of how much blame actually belongs on her shoulders. The lack of accountability and transparency from the coaching staff and front office suggests systemic problems with how the organization communicates and manages expectations with veteran players. Until someone from the Fever provides honest answers about what promises were made and why this situation deteriorated so quickly, questions about White's competence and honesty will continue to follow her throughout her coaching career. One of the most ridiculous aspects of DeWanna Bonner's public statements since leaving Indiana is her attempt to frame the narrative around coming off the bench as if that was somehow beneath her dignity or contrary to her established reputation. This is particularly laughable when you consider that she's won the 6th Woman of the Year award 3 different times throughout her career, explicitly recognizing her excellence in a reserve role rather than as a starter. Bonner's claims that she's never been the type of player to complain about bench roles directly contradict the evidence of her behavior in Indianapolis, where she clearly became unhappy when her starting position was threatened by better-performing teammates. The disconnect between her public statements and her actual behavior reveals someone who's either completely delusional about their own actions or deliberately trying to rewrite history to make herself look better. If coming off the bench truly wasn't an issue for someone with her resume and experience, then why did she suddenly develop mysterious personal problems right around the time her starting spot became uncertain? The timing of her disappearance coinciding with lineup changes suggests that her ego couldn't handle the possibility of being relegated to a reserve role on a team where she wasn't automatically guaranteed premier status. This is particularly damaging to her credibility when you consider that Indiana needed veterans who could accept whatever role would help the team succeed, not players who would throw tantrums when their individual status didn't meet their personal expectations. Bonner's track record of success coming off the bench should have made her the perfect candidate for providing instant offense and veteran leadership regardless of whether she started games or came in as a substitute. Instead, her behavior suggests someone whose priorities were focused on personal recognition rather than team success, which explains why the situation deteriorated so quickly once her role became less prominent. The fact that she's now trying to gaslight everyone about her true motivations shows a level of intellectual dishonesty that makes it impossible to trust anything she says about what really happened in Indianapolis. Professional athletes at her level and experience should understand that roles change based on performance and team needs, not personal preferences or contract guarantees. Her inability to accept a reduced role gracefully reveals character flaws that go far beyond basketball and suggests someone who views professional obligations as negotiable based on personal satisfaction. The most convenient aspect of this entire DeWanna Bonner situation is how perfectly everything worked out for her personal relationships and preferred living situation once she forced her way out of Indiana. It's honestly remarkable how someone can claim their departure was about basketball fit and professional considerations when the end result placed her exactly where her fiancée, Alyssa Thomas, was already playing for the Phoenix Mercury. The timing and destination of her preferred landing spot reveal that this was always about personal convenience rather than basketball opportunities or professional development. Bonner's insistence that everything happened for a reason becomes much less inspiring when you realize the reason was her desire to be reunited with her romantic partner rather than any noble basketball aspirations. The fact that Phoenix was reportedly her preferred destination from the moment she began expressing dissatisfaction suggests that she was essentially using Indiana as a temporary paycheck while waiting for the right opportunity to get back to her desired location. This kind of manipulation of professional opportunities based on personal relationships sets a dangerous precedent for how players can leverage contracts and organizational investments for their own convenience. The Mercury's willingness to accommodate this kind of behavior by eventually signing her despite the circumstances sends a message that professional conduct and contractual obligations are secondary to personal preferences and romantic considerations. Thomas and Bonner are now able to play together while someone else deals with the financial and roster consequences of their personal choices, which represents exactly the kind of selfish decision-making that damages the integrity of professional sports. The fact that everything worked out perfectly for their relationship, while leaving Indiana fans and management holding the bag shows exactly what their priorities were throughout this entire process. Phoenix supporters can celebrate having both players on their roster without acknowledging that they benefited from someone else's professional misconduct and breach of contractual obligations. The convenience of this outcome exposes the calculated nature of Bonner's behavior and proves that her public statements about basketball fit and professional development were complete fabrications designed to cover up purely personal motivations. When everything aligns perfectly for your personal life while everyone else suffers the consequences, it's hard to claim that professional considerations were your primary concern. Perhaps the most damaging long-term consequence of the DeWanna Bonner fiasco is what it reveals about the IndianaFever organization's inability to handle veteran free agents and maintain professional standards throughout their roster management. The fact that they allowed this situation to deteriorate to the point where a player could essentially hold them hostage while collecting paychecks shows fundamental weaknesses in their front office and coaching staff that could impact future recruitment efforts. Why would any veteran free agent take Indiana seriously as a championship contender when they've demonstrated that they can't even maintain basic professional standards with their current players? The organization's silence throughout this controversy makes them look either incompetent or guilty of making promises they couldn't keep, neither of which inspires confidence in their ability to build sustainable success. Future free agents now know that they can potentially manipulate their way out of Indiana contracts if things don't go exactly according to their personal preferences, creating a precedent that could haunt the franchise for years to come. The Fever's handling of this situation sends a message that veteran players don't have to honor their commitments if they can create enough drama and public pressure to force their release. This kind of organizational weakness becomes particularly problematic when you're trying to build around young stars like CaitlinClark, who need veteran leadership and stability rather than drama and distraction from selfish players. The front office's inability to either prevent this situation or handle it professionally raises serious questions about their competence and suggests that similar problems could arise with future signings. Kelly Kroskoff and Amber Cox now have to convince future free agents that Indiana is a serious organization while explaining away the Bonner situation and the questions it raises about their management capabilities. The damage to their reputation extends beyond just one failed signing, creating trust issues that could impact their ability to attract quality veterans who have other options available. Until the organization demonstrates that they can hold players accountable for professional conduct and contractual obligations, they'll continue to be viewed as a soft landing spot for players who want guaranteed money without guaranteed effort. The Bonner precedent essentially gives future malcontents a roadmap for how to manipulate their way out of Indiana while collecting maximum compensation, which represents an organizational failure that extends far beyond basketball performance.